November 5th, 2015. Escape from Tarkov announces its presence into the multiplayer FPS genre. Only 19 days later, the gameplay trailer was shown to the public. And unbeknownst to fans of first-person shooters, they were about to witness one of the most unique games to ever enter the genre. Hello everyone, and welcome to my little corner of the internet. So, recently I was watching this video by Emberloom called Tarkov PvE is better than PvP, and no one wants to admit it. And as he was talking about a lot of his opinions, it really got me thinking. As we all know, Tarkov's 1.0 launch is right around the corner, and as it's common knowledge by now within the Tarkov community, this community loves to bitch and complain. But not all of it without reason. Anyone who has sunk a good amount of time into Tarkov can see that there are a plethora of issues within the game. Whether it be optimization, streets, netcode or lag, visual bugs, hitboxes.
Fuck you. Oh my god!
Oh no! Not you again! I've dealt with this 3 times this week already.
All the way down to stuff like balancing in-game economy. Like, there's issues everywhere. And so I thought, despite how unique and captivating this game is, it's quite insane that this game has been in beta for nearly 9 years and is still retaining an active community and growing. It truly is impressive for a game in the current gaming space of 2025 to remain relevant despite being playable and accessible for nearly a decade. Let me explain. Battlestate Games, or BSG for short, started development on Escape from Tarkov in 2012. For those who just might be unfamiliar with this title, it's quite a unique first-person shooter within the FPS space. The game is widely known for starting this new genre of extraction shooters. EFT entered public beta on July 28th, 2017, and at the time, I was preparing for my junior year of high school, completely unaware of the news surrounding Tarkov. Hell, I didn't even have my first gaming PC back then, bro. Anyhow, apparently Tarkov was taking the shooter scene by storm, with apparently a lot of hype surrounding the release of the beta. Well, why? What made Tarkov so unique to generate so much hype? From the beginning, Tarkov had been advertising itself as a hardcore realistic-based first-person shooter, and they were not kidding. So let's start with the premise of Tarkov. You can either play as your Scav or play as your PMC. I'll start with the Scav. If you play as a Scav, you load into a raid with random loot. It's, randomly generated. The Scav could have whatever on it, but usually it's gonna be some pretty garbage ass shit. But I did one time come across a Scav having BP ammo. That was nuts. I don't know how that happened, but it happens. It's just really rare. Basically though, when you play as your Scav, you get to play with like no risk and exponentially high reward, just under the constraint of having a random kit and you have half the amount of time that you would on your PMC. So your objective on your Scav basically is to just go make money, and that's how you fund your kits for your PMC. It's just an extra way to make some free money. Still, the same thing will apply on both characters, that if you die, you will lose everything you have on you. So your headset, your guns, your, armor, helmet, your ammo, all that stuff. You lose all of it. So if you die, you don't get to keep anything. Now, if you play in your PMC, basically everything that you have been able to find through your raids or your Scav raids and you have collected in your stash, you can be using to either vendor them to traders or use them in your raids, like, your grenades and ammo and guns and stuff like that. You are going to be heading into your raids more geared as your PMC, I would hope so, over your Scav, usually, unless you're just really, really broke. We've been there. We've all been there. But, basically, just there is a hard progression punishment that if you die, you lose a lot of progression. You can be losing, a good, couple hours worth of gameplay sometimes if you die when you're doing these longer quests. Although when Tarkov released, I didn't really have quests in them yet. It was kind of just PvP, but that's cool. I wish I was a part of that time period, to be honest, bro. I was so late into Tarkov, but it's fine. And I haven't even mentioned the health system. The health system is pretty complicated. but once you learn it, it's really easy. But to somebody that's unfamiliar with extraction shooters, yes, the health system is complicated. But, you know, I'm not going to sit here and ramble on and on about what makes Tarkov hardcore and, you know, all that, like, what makes it a realistic shooter. There's a lot. It goes down to the details of fucking ballistics, bro. Like, there's a lot of stuff that can make this game reach a more realistic feel as much as possible. Anyways, the main point is that there's a sense of adrenaline here, a very much feeling of high risk, high reward at all times. And, you know, simply put, it's a feeling that wasn't put into games that much yet. It wasn't a feeling that was tapped into by developers as much yet that, you know, to have people feel while they play their games. Funnily enough, just a few months after Tarkov went into beta, Fortnite released with its Battle Royale mode, and as history has shown, it absolutely blew up the Battle Royale market after PUBG. And while it was a new thrill and a style of shooter for gamers back then, it wasn't exactly what Tarkov was offering either. Tarkov was creating its own path in the FPS genre. Different from Battle Royales, where you're building your own kit before heading into a match, but similar to it that when you die, you lose everything you had done in that match, or more. And, you know, the premise of looting, obviously, is still there. When you head into a raid, your objective, simply put, is to loot, kill other players, and extract. The items you loot in raid, like I mentioned, can be sold off to different vendors for in-game currency. The more and buy you stuff from these traders, the more your loyalty level with them goes up, and you can buy better gear from them. And to the current day, this is essentially all that extraction shooters are. Tarkov was just the first game to do it. Now that I've explained all that, I want to explain why I think it's impressive after 8 years in beta, Tarkov has remained relevant. But in order to do that, I do have to start with some glaring issues that Tarkov faces. While Tarkov started off as a niche game within the genre, over the years of its development, the game picked up a lot more traction than initially anticipated, I feel like. Which is great and all, but with more players comes more complaints. Now, don't get me wrong, the people at BSG are all hardworking and talented people, and after all, they've made a game that no other game has been able to fully replicate, even Arena Breakout, despite that being the closest comparison to Tarkov other than Tarkov itself. But that doesn't save them from the fact that, from the core, let's be real, Tarkov was developed like shit. So, let's start with the basics. Tarkov fundamentally does not have a tutorial built into the game. And I really hope that BSG has made a tutorial for 1.0, but to be honest with you, I don't think that they have, just because of how long the game has been out, and the fact that there are so many different ways to learn the game. Which is another point that I do want to come back to in a moment, but, you know, well, I'll get there when I get there. When you load up Tarkov, you are met with a title screen, and from there you can just choose to visit your stash or head out into Tarkov. Now, when you head out into Tarkov, your HUD is very minimalistic, which adds to the immersion, which is great, until you realize that there is no in-game map, nor are there any quest icons on your screen indicating where you need to go. So essentially, you are free to run around wherever you please in raid, so long as you make it to your extraction before the timer runs out. But wait, where is your extract? Ha! Who knows? You'll just have to look for it. Not to mention, Tarkov has an abundant amount of keybinds. Way more than your typical game with mouse and keyboard. Sure, they show you some of the important ones in the loading screen, but in raid, if you don't remember the keybind to inspect and fix your weapon jam, you gotta head into your settings and find what keybind that is. Which is also atrocious, by the way. That UI is terrible. Oh, you ran out of ammo? Too bad the game didn't tell you that you need to bring ammo with you into raid, and then you have to pack your magazines to keep them full. You took damage and got a heavy bleed? Sorry, buddy. A bandage ain't gonna fix that. That only heals light bleeds. Etc, etc. My point is, Tarkov doesn't teach you about the mechanics of the game at all. It just kind of throws you right into the fray with zero help whatsoever. Which brings me to my point earlier, using different resources to learn the game. The Tarkov Wiki is a must-have website pulled up for anyone who is new and or learning the game. The simple fact is that a wiki had to be created to help players learn where they need to go and where extracts are is just absurd to me. Tarkov has a very steep learning curve, especially if you were thinking about jumping into the game present day. If you do, I highly advise playing with a friend or two that at least knows the game decently before getting into it, so that they can help Sherpa you through learning the basics. Or you can just play PvE. Yes, I do know that Tarkov does give you some like in-game maps to like woods and shit like that, but let's be real, those maps don't help you at all, and you're better off just looking at the wiki. Tarkov is also just widely known for being very unoptimized. Even on my PC, which has a Ryzen 7 5800X CPU, a 3070 Ti GPU, and 32 gigabytes of RAM, I do struggle to hold a frame rate of over 60 FPS for most of my raids. Granted, I do play PvE, so I do think performance is a little worse for me because I'm running servers locally, unless I'm playing with friends. But still, it's not great performance, with the biggest offender by far being the map streets of Tarkov. simply because Streets is just the biggest map in the game by far, and they made like zero effort to optimize it at all. I don't exactly know how optimization works, so I'm not going to speak like I know what I'm talking about, but in comparison to every other map, Streets is just noticeably the least optimized, especially for low-end PCs. They literally have a setting for it in the game settings. Bro, are we for real right now? But anyhow, the game also does struggle with lag, stutters, heavy frame rate drops, memory leaks. Like, all of these have been present issues in the game for quite a long time, as far as I can remember. Like, you know, some of these have been in there for like 3 or 4 years, bro. Like, the memory leaks have been in there forever. Don't even get me started on audio, by the way. Every update, the community complains about the audio. Granted, I do think the audio right now in Tarkov is the best I've heard it since I started playing back in like 2021, actually. But either way, you know what? This game has better audio than Apex Legends, so you know what? It's fine by me. Inconsistent audio direction is another big complaint from the community, though. And probably most famously or infamously of all, depending how you look at it, Tarkov has been known for having a very big cheater-infested game, with BSG not having very good anti-cheat at all. Now, I haven't played PvP Tarkov in about 4 years, so I can't really speak on this topic all that much, but you don't really have to look far to find clips of people cheating in Tarkov. I do watch a lot of Tarkov streamers though, and while they do still run into cheaters, it doesn't appear like they run into them as often as people make it out to be. I think a big factor in that is that there is no kill cam system in Tarkov that, you know, just kind of leads to people saying a lot of other people are cheating without blatant proof. Before I continue on, I mentioned PvE and it reminded me about Tarkov's monetization format, which, well, it's just really, really shitty. When Tarkov released its PvE mode, they locked it behind a paywall for the Unheard edition of the game. This whole situation blew up to where even mainstream streamers were talking about it, so you might have heard about this whole situation. The whole thing basically blew up though because the Unheard edition replaced the previously known Edge of Darkness edition of the game, and for people who purchased this EOD version, Nikita, who is the head of BSG, had previously said that anyone who had purchased the EOD would get all subsequent DLC content for free, as you bought the Season Pass, which is a very outdated term in this current era of gaming, to be honest, now that I think about it. But when PvE released, Nikita initially only made PvE available to those who purchased or upgraded to the Unheard edition, despite PvE being a DLC game mode. And this is how BSG makes their money, through these subsequent editions of the game. You have the Standard, Left Behind, Prepare for Escape, and Unheard editions, each one costing more money than the last, with the benefit that the more you pay, the better gear you get starting your account. Kind of pay to win, honestly, but as a whole, people overlooked it, and I wish they didn't for better balancing between editions, but like, I get it. Other than that, BSG offers some stash size upgrades for money and a couple outfits for your character in game, which is better, but the bulk of their monetization practice lies within people purchasing the game, not the cosmetics, which is disheartening. And there has been a growing voice, I feel like, within the community for BSG to make more skins and cosmetics for purchase instead of relying mainly on people buying new copies of the game or Arena. But as BSG does, they haven't really listened all that much. And this actually ties into my next point. Prior to the release of the Unheard edition, BSG was a developer that was mainly radio silent to the community that was playing their game. They were not very transparent about the changes or things that they intended on adding to the game, and oftentimes with new updates getting a lot of backlash for how poorly optimized and buggy they were, as if they weren't play tested at all, but until the updates went live. Like, BSG, what are we doing? Granted, this doesn't happen as much anymore, but like, bro, what were we doing? What were we doing? We were just freeballing it back then. This problem leads to a lot of weird tension between community and developer, and for the developer, I feel like it's a very risky path to take because one wrong move and your whole community could just abandon your game, which, to be honest, Tarkov has had happen a lot of times, and it just seemed to work out for BSG in the long run, as their game was apparently just too addicting for the community to put down, and they just kept pushing through because I mean, I guess the game is just that good to the core player base. I don't know. BSG didn't really change their ways until the Unheard edition fiasco, and thank God they finally learned their lesson on that one, because like, dude, ever since like Nikita started being more transparent about development, things for the game just like skyrocketed up. I swear to God. Now, I can keep ranting on and on about the issues that Tarkov has had along its development, and I haven't even mentioned like the outdated UI yet, and I have a lot of personal gripes about Tarkov's AI, but Tarkov's AI honestly deserves a whole separate video, which I'd be more than happy to expand upon that topic if anyone is interested. Drop a comment down below and let me know. And while you're there, you may as well hit the sub button. It's a bit of a long shot, but I want to see if we can hit 200 subs by the end of the year. And I mean, hey, it's right next to the button. You can leave a like too. Sorry, YouTuber. I'm sorry. Okay, so I've explained a lot of issues that Tarkov has faced or still currently faces, and after all that, why I'm finally getting to the point of the video. Why do I think it's impressive that Tarkov has remained so popular in the gaming space? As I mentioned earlier, Tarkov just captures a very specific feeling that no other game has been able to replicate. Despite Arena Breakout Infinite being a near exact replica of Tarkov, it lacks the same feeling. I don't really know how to explain it, but I'm sure for those of you who understand what I mean by that, you get it. Tarkov is by far the most immersive FPS game I've ever encountered, and I'm no stranger to the genre. I've been playing games my whole life, bro. But when you get into those intense gunfights against bosses or other players and you have a bag full of loot that you need, that fear and adrenaline you feel is very real, at least at first. And then you get addicted and play the game for thousands of hours and just look at the fact that you are a masochist. And you are, whether you accept that or not. Which brings me to Tarkov's near endless replayability. Granted, the game in itself already requires such a significant grind that it's basically a third full-time job that, only the streamers and unemployed will get to truly expand upon unique ideas and self-challenges you can impose upon yourself after reaching endgame. But with the way that Tarkov works, every raid is going to be at least slightly unique. Every gunfight will be different, players will react differently, and some raids you'll just encounter solo players, other raids you're going to be hiding from a squad of a 5-stack because you're not in a good position. No two raids ever really play out the exact same back to back. Well, unless you get sniped off spawn, I suppose, but it's happened to all of us. And even for players who are deep enough into the grind to be boss hunting, as predictable as Tarkov's AI is, sometimes they will just do some random bullshit you've never seen before and pull one over you. For me personally, this is a big point as to why I enjoy Tarkov so much. While yes, you're pretty much just grinding endlessly to reach Kappa, there's so many other things you can do in raid, between VoIP interactions with other players, PvP hunting, boss hunting, or just doing stupid gun builds and wild out-of-the-box strategies. There's always a unique story that you can create with a character outside of Tarkov's in-game quests, and just making a challenge for yourself. It's this sense of adventure that makes the game so alluring to me that you never really know what to expect next depending on what you're really aiming to do. And I think for this reason alone, the community has been unable to escape from Tarkov.
He said it! He said it!
Sorry. No, I'm not. I'm not sorry. I knew what I was doing. Anyways, the gameplay loop of Tarkov just allows for so many unique encounters that just can't really be found in many other games. Tarkov is very akin to being a survival game, and everyone is very aware of just how popular survival games are. Rust is a great example of this, seeing it both has VoIP and the idea that you lose everything you carry on your character when you die. Obviously sharing similar features and mechanics, but within the setting of Tarkov, just dials it up to 10 in my opinion. Stories of friendships and betrayals, and no matter how many gunfights you've had, there's always going to be that one death where you just can't believe the other player pulled off that strat. I don't know if this point is really making much sense anymore, and at this point I feel like I'm going to try to be over-explaining it, so I'll just leave it at that. Ultimately, the feel of the gunplay in Tarkov is just one that cannot be replicated in any other game. The sense of satisfaction you get when you drop another player with a sniper or mag dump a whole squad isn't a feeling I've felt since my days trickshotting in NW2.
Oh, you hit? No way. Bro. Wait. No. Bro, what?
What? How the fuck did that hit him?
And for the players who love PvP, I can totally understand why. It is definitely a core reason as to why Tarkov has remained so popular among the FPS community for so long. And quickly, I do want to mention the graphics in the setting. Tarkov has a very distinct look to it, and to be honest, for it being built in Unity, it has a very pretty in-game aesthetic to it, and it's always immediately recognizable. Outside of popular titles like Stalker and Metro as well, no other title has really had the same success other than Tarkov for being in a Russian setting. Now, these are just some of my personal opinions as to why I think Tarkov has survived up until now. There's a lot of bad with the game that could have killed the game by now with, I think, any other community almost. I think what really helps is just the atmosphere of Tarkov and the survivalness to it, the different ways you can play it, how unique every experience can be. I think there's just a lot of outside factors besides the core gameplay mechanics that just makes this game really great and so gripping. The game and development team have never received a lot of shit, and a lot of it rightly is warranted, and a lot of it really isn't either. But the fact remains that BSG has created the game so unique that it still captures the souls of masochistic people to this day since its early days back in 2017. Tarkov is no longer a game being the only one of its kind anymore, and as other developers have seen this rising audience in extraction shooters like Gray Zone Warfare and previously mentioned Arena Breakout Infinite, but I don't think anyone can deny that Tarkov still remains the true king among the extraction shooters that are out there. The unique feeling of the game is just something that can't really be forgotten for those who truly fall into the world of Tarkov. I'm sure there's going to be a crowd of Tarkov haters, you know, commenting, bro, why are you glazing such a shitty game so much? This, you know, BSG sucks, this and that. But, like, you know what I say to you? Like, yeah, that is true. Like, the game does have a lot of issues. BSG is not the best developer, especially in how they treat their community and, you know, paywall a lot of things. I know that. But ultimately, this game is something that I still have a lot of fun with, and I have sunk a good 500-600 hours of my life into. And, you know, it's a game that I care about enough to write this whole fucking script talking about it. Like, that's all that really matters at the end of the day, no? Like, this is all for fun, bro. Well, I believe that just about wraps it up for everything I have to say in this video. I believe I've spent too much time yapping, but please let me know what your thoughts are for the release of 1.0 down in the comments below. Truthfully, I don't expect 1.0 to be too different from the Tarkov that we currently know, just with the addition of a proper main story quest to follow along with. A lot of the current bugs and issues that are in the game, I think, will still be there in classic Tarkov fashion. But that's just part of the risk we take when we go into raid, isn't it? Don't forget to follow my socials down below. You can find my Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, Discord servers, all down there. Join up the Discord. It's the best way to know when I go live, because I usually forget to post these things when I'm, you know, on my other socials. And also, just come interact with the community, man. We've got a lot of different people in there, from anime lovers to ravers, and we're always open to welcoming new people in. Thank you for watching, and until the next video. Bye-bye.